Good evening. Welcome. Who can last longer than 5 seconds on a soccer field, but would probably disappoint their girlfriends and wives in bed? It's us, the three handsome lads from Thursday Night Podcast for American Scouser TV. ASTV, as the cool kids call it. And we have a very focused show tonight. We're joined by Brian and Trevor. Brian, how are you?
Doing fantastic.
Trevor, how goes it this week?
Not setting the bar very high, but better than Thiago.
There you go. And that's what our focus is going to be tonight. We're going to talk about Thiago Alcantara play. I mean, come on. 5 minutes, 10 minutes of a game, and he's out again. It's becoming more than a joke at this point. It's literally an exception to a rule somewhere down the logic of soccer line in as time goes by. We'll talk about our own personal favorite sick notes at Liverpool. We'll have one each. We'll discuss them. And then we'll talk about the game ahead on Saturday against Burnley at home. Time to pick up the pieces from the Arsenal defeat and get ourselves going again. But let's start with Thiago Alcantara, Brian. I mean, should have expected it. Hoped it wasn't going to be true, but it was. The guy gets injured 5-10 minutes after playing soccer again.
I had no doubts in my mind right there. I was really surprised that he made it on the pitch right there. I know there's certain people out there amongst us, our American Scouts or club who are very pro Thiago. I mean, and was expecting great things to happen right there. But, I kind of expected it right there. It seems like he's like coaching Bashatek in the same manner in a way right there, saying, hey, this is the way we're going to do this. And I just don't know. I mean, Thiago right there, when he came to the club, he came with such a lot of glamour. Everybody, the whole like little short thing with him whistling the Thiago song and stuff like that, and you're just like, man, okay, what can we accomplish with him? We haven't accomplished anything with him because he hasn't played. I mean, it's like I can't even really care. I don't know. Honestly, I can't say I can't know his stats because he hasn't been playing with us for so long. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm disappointed right there because I think that at the time right there we needed to have somebody who could actually in our midfield, with some experience and stuff like that with losing Endo in the Asian Cup, and having Sabazai injured, that to have that extra body there right there would have been a very useful thing. But it just seems like it's all for naught. So good luck, Thiago, at your next club. Whoever decides to sign you, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Albanian 2nd Division, Greek 3rd Division. I don't know, but
the American Red Cross.
But yeah, good luck, Thiago. Thanks for something that you did. I'm not sure what it is.
Trevor, we get a reputation here on Thursday for bashing Darwin Núñez a lot, and we don't bash him. We just point out the logical truth that he misses a lot of easy sitters that pretty much any 5th division striker should be scoring. But for Thiago, that could rapidly become a thing for us here as well on the Thursday night show because it's Thiago Alcantara. We hardly knew you. He's in and he's out, and then he's out, and then he's out, and then he's in, then he's out, and then he's out. He's worse than the can, to be fair, or the hokey cokey. He is a class player. Just like we'll always say that Darwin Núñez has a lot of good qualities, just not 5 yards in front of goal. But Thiago is a class player. But what is the problem? Is he just digging out the paycheck at this point, or does he generally have a broken down body and he should probably consider actually retiring from the game altogether?
Yeah, at this stage of the thing, I don't know if it's something where he saw Arthur and be like, hey, whoa, so I can just spend my entire time on the trainer's table and still get paid. Maybe that was just a bit of inspiration from him, but that's I don't know. I think he's got to be on the road to retirement at this point. I don't know what I'd be worried about, but that's neither here nor there. They were the donut guys, so that's not going to happen because Thiago is not even going to see the pitch again. Never mind score. So
yep, Adon needs to do those stretches.
Yeah, get get those Kobayashi stomach exercises going, because you're gonna be pounding them jellies, boy. But either way, my thing with Thiago is just and we all know his resume, where he's came from, everything he's done, and all that he brings to the table when healthy. But that is the biggest caveat in this team is Thiago when healthy. You can just immediately hit the backspace button on those last two words anytime you're talking about him, because it just never happens. And the fact that he came on for this last game, played roughly 10 or so minutes, and now is injured again. It just wraps up his entire past 24 months in a nice, tidy little Thiago bow. And I'm just ready for him to set sail, go play for Vasco da Gama. They have the boat in their logo, right? Yeah. Just go do that and have a fun retirement tour.
Brian, before we go to you, a good evening to Alan, and making a good point there. Maybe got injured pulling his fat wallet out of his back pocket. But in all seriousness, though, he is a highlights player now at this point of his career for Liverpool. He has done some very good things, but there's so few and far between that you could probably just make a 5-minute video on YouTube for them all and not have anything left over on the cutting room floor for later on. We have a new manager, or more than likely coming in, unless there's some miraculous change of heart from Jurgen Klopp, which there won't be. But if we're worried about Salah going, and if we're worried about Van Dijk going, and if we're worried about maybe even Alisson looking elsewhere, is Thiago one that we can just say, thanks, you've done your job, your name's in the history books, good luck to you for the rest of your whatever you're going to have?
I mean, I already said right there, I think that Thiago, it's, how much more can he offer? I mean, honestly, right there. I mean, what more can he offer us? I mean, I saw somebody came there who, I forgot who was the comment that said that maybe that Xabi Alonso, if he does come in, should offer Thiago a player manager spot. No. We don't need this right there. I mean, I think that, thank you, Thiago. Thank you for, as I said, whatever you've done. But I mean, I just don't see the need. I mean, right there. I mean, yeah, I heard he's a great guy back in the dressing room, as far as like being knowing multiple languages and being able to communicate with other players and all that. But I mean, again, okay, offer him a strictly assistant manager role. Don't put player involved with him, because it's a fraud. He's not going to play. So I mean, so if I think if he wants to play, continue playing, it can't be here. If he wants to go there and possibly maybe be backroom staff, sure. I mean, maybe we could think about it right there, but I just don't. I don't see the need.
Well, to be fair though, if he's been productive with all this time off that he's had, he would want to have been doing his coaching badges, because he can't just put players on those staff positions without the requisite licenses. But that's the point, Trevor. Going forward, is it a situation for Thiago that maybe he has been taking his coaching licenses whilst being laid up, and maybe that is something to look forward to in the future for him, and in the near future, that maybe he has his eye on a coaching role and he's not too bothered with the playing part anymore.
Yeah, and as Brian put out there, his ability to communicate with just bridging a lot of language gaps, I think, is a valuable asset for him, with being able to go to a lot of different leagues in Europe if he so chooses, not necessarily staying with Liverpool. But I think at this stage of the game, we've seen it all across tons of sports, those guys that they just hang on for too long, and you're going, oh man, we don't want to see you have to go through another rehab, especially when it gets to the point where it's just innocuous injuries over and over again. It's not like, oh, you're 37 and you tore your ACL for the 5th time. Like your hip. With him, it's just oh, your hip's fucked up. Oh, well, you banged your knee and then you have to be out for 4 weeks. He never really has that injury where you go, oh, he's going to be on the shelf for a year, and we've mentally prepared ourselves for him being away for that long. It's always just these weird knocks that come up and then they just get worse and worse. And oh, he had a setback in training. Oh, a chiropractor hit his shoulder wrong, or just something stupid every time with him. And there's never really any rhyme or reason to it. And at that point, you got to just kind of cut your losses and just go, thank you for your service, however minimal it was. Bon voyage.
Brian, on the Premier League panel show that I sat in for last night for Timuchin, one of the lads made the point about FFP and how Forest just keep buying up players almost sneakily, and nobody is recognizing that they're doing that. And we joked about like who they would buy, etc. Is that kind of a club somewhere where you could see Thiago going? For the twilight of his career, just to pick up that one last paycheck and only be expected to play almost half a season, or should they just take him out the back and shoot him like a horse?
I mean, it really depends on where Nottingham Forest is going to be at after this season, right there. Because I know they're still facing this financial fair play that they're have to get charged with violating the FFP. So they might be in the championship anyway. Maybe they definitely can't sign a Thiago then. But I mean, I just don't think that they need that. Even they don't need Thiago. I don't know who needs Thiago. I mean, honestly, I don't know what capacity that he would fill in any league right now. So I just don't. I think it's also a point where you get to a player, like kind of like what Trevor was saying right there. You kind of have to realize that, hey, it's time. I can't fulfill my obligation of being a player anymore. So it's time to go out there and call it. I mean, and I hope that he was working on this whole year or 3 years or how long he has to go out there to work on his coaching badges, to go to a next step and stuff like that. I mean, but because right now I just don't see him as a viable player for any club at the moment. I think he'd get the shit beat out of him in the championship or even down the lower divisions of England. I mean, so he couldn't do that. I mean, maybe lower division of Spain. I don't know, but I just don't see it.
So I think our expert minds have basically and essentially agreed that at the end of the season, Thiago should be taken out back, shot, and converted into glue, and at least we could stick him on something, and he'd be finally useful to us as a club. Maybe you can hold down some banners or something like that. But that just brings us to Thiago is not the only Liverpool sick note we've had, and we had the discussion earlier today about we're all going to pick our favorite, let's say, our most hated sick note Liverpool player. We'll start with Trevor because Trevor picked this lad here who was almost as famous as Thiago Alcantara for his number one reputation as a midfielder and number two for that reputation lying firmly in the physio room on the physio table with the tens machine. Trevor, tell us about Naby Keita and his adventures throughout every ER room in Britain.
So my biggest gripe with Naby Keita is before the season, the vast majority of Liverpool's deficiencies came from the midfield, and there was always just internal rumbling of, oh man, yeah, Naby's back in training this week. Oh, we're gonna get him back, and everybody that kind of follows the sport knew his track record, where he was coming from in Germany, and all of the things that they've seen him do. He was very accomplished, and he came to Liverpool as a guy that was not supposed to necessarily be that not in that like captaincy material, but he was going to be one of those guys that was supposed to be a game changer. He was supposed to come in and really just push the midfield forward, and he never got off the ground. And like I was saying with Thiago, he was that guy that it was never the same injury. It's almost as if he shook a fucking magic 8-ball every time he went into the physio room. It's like, well, looks like I have a groin injury this week. And yep, I have a twinge in my shoulder. Oh, I guess I have Alzheimer's. That's wrong. And it just there was always something. And anytime that you thought that he was going to come back, he would. And just like Thiago, he'd get hurt within the first 2 games. And it was never like he got wiped out by a tackle. It would be something stupid as, oh, he ran to like yell at a ref and then he pulled his hamstring. Or he went to like kick a ball out of play for a corner and he'd get a fucking hangnail or something. It was he never, and it sounds dumb to say, he never got hurt cool. Like he never went out on his sword. He always just got injured in the dumbest, most just benign ways possible, and he would be out forever. And you'd always look at those game day apps where you use SofaScore or whatever one that tickles your fancy, and you just see him more often than not. He was always listed as doubtful. And those that watch the NFL, like doubtful is basically you're not going to play, but they can't rule you out because of some weird technicality. He was just habitually doubtful. And we go, this motherfucker's not going to play. What are you talking about? Naby Keita is not going to play this week. Why are you just not mark him as out? And he was one of the more frustrating players of the recent era because there was so much promise there that he just completely, if we're going to say he had 100% promise, he probably reached about 0.000001 of that.
Brian, what are your enduring memories of the legend that is Naby Keita? To be fair, like after he's left, he has spoken nothing but high praise for Liverpool and for Jurgen Klopp. But still, it's like Thiago. It's the road less traveled almost, isn't it? We wanted to see so much from him. We were told he was going to be this impactful midfield player for us, and yet the decrepit Zimmer frame running James Milner contributed probably 10 times the amount that Keita did in the same amount of time. What are your abiding memories of the gentleman named Naby?
Maybe it's the case of the shirt weighing him down because he gave you that number 8 shirt and he was that natural one that's going to come after that came after Steven Gerrard. And, you're just like, okay, well, hey, this guy's a Gerrard-ish right there. You saw all the clips from him playing in Germany. You saw this dynamic player making runs and stuff like that, and you get him and you get a couple matches hurt, a couple matches hurt, a couple more matches that hurt for infinity. I mean, it's like, I think I can really think of maybe one viable goal that from him that I thought was class. I mean, other than that right there, I mean, I don't know what you could really save them. He came into matches. Some matches he was over aggressive when he came into matches. He broke up and he broke up our rhythm. Some matches he was just kind of like strung out there, not doing anything. I mean, it was almost like it was like a communication breakdown from the get go with Naby Keita. With everything that we thought that we were going to get, we didn't get. I mean, it was like a bad prize. I mean, it's like you go there, open that Cracker Jack box, that us American kids go there and had right there, and you go there like, oh man, I'm gonna get something cool, and instead right there, you got like a bookmark or some little stupid little plastic thing that nobody likes and nobody cares, and you just throw it down. I mean, it's like that's what it was like, or actually like a Christmas cracker, and you get something stupid in there. They're not even a funny joke. And that's what Naby Keita was. Not even a funny joke.
He was the funny joke.
But yeah, that's what I don't have any memories of Naby Keita. It's like something. It's like what Alan said. It was a fart in the bathtub. I mean, that's about really kind of what it was. I mean, he was there, but that's it.
Yeah, but I want to say one thing. For all that we've like kind of crapped on him and Thiago, these were two guys that kind of held themselves together. That because there's plenty of guys over the course of time, and I'm sure we're going to talk about a couple of them that were just injured all the time and were just kind of dog shit human beings, like guys that were like, oh well, I'm getting paid regardless, it doesn't matter.
Joseph Cole, I think, is his name.
But at least these guys kind of handled themselves very well, and like with Naby when he ended up leaving, and I think he's in Wolfsburg now. He never said anything bad. Never been like, oh well, the physio team mishandled me, and it was just kind of a run of just bad luck. But it got to a point where it just got comical how bad it was. It was never like, oh, he just did his hamstring for the 7th time. It was always something different, and there was never any consistency to how he was getting hurt. So that was the frustrating part from my end.
And Naby Keita still hasn't played maybe a handful of matches right now for Wolfsburg, and I think their supporters are like, what do we buy, or what do we got?
Hey, when you buy off the clearance rack, you can't, no returns.
I think it has to be said though, he is consistent, if nothing else.
Well, I guess you can't buy from Ross and expect good quality products.
So let's move on. We'll go to mine because I think Brian's one might have a little different story to it. So my guy is this absolute weapon of a prat, Jamie Redknapp. Again, another midfield maestro in the making at the time. Part of that Spice Boy era. Quite a talented player. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But spent more time in the treatment room than he did on the field, it seems, even in my nostalgic eyes. But then did the stupid thing, as I mentioned before we went on air, of calling the manager who won more trophies in 1 year than I think Redknapp had won as a player in his entire career. For minutes played, Jared Houllier calling him a wanker on a British comedy quiz sports show, because Jared Houllier had the temerity to say he could lift the trophy as a captain of the club, despite not playing a minute of any of the games, I think, that were for the finals or anything. But probably him and Darren Anderton at the same time were the definitions of those sick note players. Jamie Redknapp he talked a lot. He married Louise Nording from one of those girl bands that was out in the 90s. And they were like the Aldi version of Posh and Becks. They didn't have quite the same amount of celebrity. But I think also, as well as anything else, Jamie Redknapp just suffers from the fact that he's Harry Redknapp's son. And there's something. I mean, Harry Redknapp is that dodgy dealer. He's the used car dealer. If he sells you something, there's something broken on it. And he sold his son, and there clearly was something broken about him pretty much every week and every season. There you go. Alan agrees. Darren Anderton, the original sick note, and he was, and thankfully he never played for Liverpool, but he did have the credentials for the physios at least. But Brian, I'll go to you and Trevor then as well. What are your memories, if any, of the amazing Jamie Redknapp?
Well, I think really some of my memories right there were with him was, as I described prior to this, like that he was like Jordan Henderson, like in his first part of his entity of his Liverpool career, where he was like a central midfielder that kind of just like was like kind of tried to drive the midfield. But I think that he was surrounded, but what he was surrounded by was like kind of more dynamic players. The Spice Boys with the white suits. I mean, for the FA Cup final. I mean, that was the epitome of him. Seeing him and Robbie Fowler and all those guys like that, you're just like, oh my God, can you pick the worst freaking clothes to ever wear to a final? Besides, it was almost as bad as the Super Bowl shuffle with the 1985 Bears. I mean, you're just like, oh man, why? Don't do this ever again. But I mean, I really don't have as many great memories of Redknapp. You know, I mean, it was he was kind of there, and you know, I thought that he got surpassed by the young players that were behind him in his time that he was out injured. You know, and I think that our midfield changed and it evolved past him, and I think that's what happened. I mean, it's like, you know, where did he wind up getting sold to? Did he sell him back to Spurs or somebody like that? I can't remember where he went to after
He came from West Ham, I think, if I remember correctly, and then went to Spurs. But he was also completely and utterly outshone by the young Steven Gerrard.
Yes.
That guy that was like really, really good and never injured.
Yeah, and you know, he went to Spurs and he really didn't play really that much at Spurs. I mean, he kind of did the same thing right there. He did the Darren Anderton at Spurs. You know, I mean, you know, I don't have any ill feelings about him right there. You know, it was kind of like, you know, not kind of like the little jaded feeling I had about Naby Keita, you know, but he was just kind of there. I mean, saying that about Jed was kind of sucked. I mean, you know, that whole treble season was the cup treble was such a fun season to watch. I mean, you know, to bash a manager for that, you know, yeah. Go on with your life, I guess, my friend.
Trevor, what are your impressions of the lanky-haired Spice Boy?
So as a player, he was a bit before my time, but as a talking head,
You didn't miss anything.
It seems that I've kind of dodged a bullet in that regard. But as a talking head, I've gotten more than my fill of him, and it's one of those things where, and we have a lot of like talking head shows here that are just tiring, and there's now they start to be flooded more with ex players, where it used to just be kind of these guys that didn't want to be sports writers anymore that would just go on and yell at each other at 7:00 in the morning. Whereas in Britain, they always kind of had that mix of players that I would see. And Jamie Redknapp was always one of those guys that anytime he tried to talk in certain regards about high level play, he would always just be taken down a peg, because you're like, man, what do you know? Like anytime that you were in any situation of high level play or possible professional peril, you either got hurt or you just didn't show up, or you asked for a move. Like there was no time in your playing career where you could stand on any sort of ceremony for things that you created. I'm sure he did, and I bet you it died.
It was probably injured. Yeah,
I was gonna say it died probably more unceremoniously than mine did, and he probably had a maid that he had a check bounce on, get rid of it, whereas I disposed of my plant myself. But yeah, he's always just been that guy that is now like a fringe pundit, where you're going, oh, they got Jamie Redknapp on here today. All right, at least I can mute his 3 minutes of absolutely nothing commentary and go to the bathroom or something. Yeah, he's a guy that really produces nothing of substance for me. And from the way you guys have described, he produced nothing of substance for the club. So at least he's staying on brand.
So let's move on to the last one. And the only reason I keep this one last is because when we pull the picture up, we did actually get to see literally the very best of him. I think he pretty much had his best season with us. And it's this chap here. And as much, I think he's definitely a sick note, and especially post 2013-14 and post Suarez. But he did give us, with Suarez and Sterling and Coutinho, that fantastic season where he probably showed, if Darwin Núñez had the gumption to go and watch some videos, how to actually put some simple goals away. Suarez was doing all the nice fancy stuff, but you didn't want Daniel Sturridge bearing down on your goalkeeper with 4 yards to go because it was going in the back of the net. But Brian, this was your choice. Is this one a bittersweet one? Because he was amazing for us in parts, but once Suarez went, we really needed him on the field more than he was, didn't we?
It's completely bittersweet. It's kind of sad right there because it was a kind of a story what could have been, with Sturridge. I mean, I think that in my opinion, he's probably one of the most natural strikers we've had with our club. I mean, it seemed like magic when he was on the ball. I mean, that whole season, that 2014 season, was such a high. I mean, with watching Sturridge, Suarez, and Sterling all together with Coutinho behind them. I mean, it was so amazing to watch. I mean, you're just like, oh man, this squad's just beginning. I mean, we have so many more. We have years ahead of us right there, to happen for it to only break up the next season and then be completely dismantled like 2 seasons later. I mean, but it's. I think Sturridge was a steal that we got when we bought him. I mean, when we got him from Chelsea, I think he was only on like 15 mil, I think is what we bought him for, something like that from Chelsea. It's a steal. I mean, compared to what they could have used at that point. He was like an extra guy for Mourinho that Mourinho didn't care about. I mean, it's like once he came there, went to our club, he had people that were behind him because we're not plastic supporters like kind of like those guys down there in London. But and I think that we when he got injured, after the season that he poured forward that and his gradually went downhill further, he made those one-off appearances as a sub right there under Klopp and all that. It was kind of sad watching him come on the pitch. It was almost like he was a player that that you thought that that you just hoped and wished that we could have seen more of. And I think that's where you go with the whole bittersweet thing with it, is that I wanted more of Sturridge.
There we go, Trevor. The thing about Sturridge for me, which also makes it bittersweet, is he was such a great representative of the club. He was such a funny guy. I remember there was a whole thing on Liverpool FC TV about Raquel's yogurts that he was trying to advertise. And he kept saying he had nothing to do with the company, but they were very delicious and everybody should buy them. It was absolutely like the part of what made that team so great was, or so enjoyable, was the personalities. But for you, is it a case of, again, we got the best out of him, and if only sliding doors had slid a little bit differently, we could have got even more?
Yeah, the SAS era was incredibly fun, and he was a guy that had a bubbly personality, both on and off the pitch. He was somebody that you genuinely wanted to root for, even if you look at his time before that in a vacuum. He was one of those guys that's like, oh, he played for City and Chelsea, and he was like this really hyped up academy kid. And in like footballing senses, that's somebody that you could easily really turn against real quick. It's like, oh, it's this guy that just has come up through all of these really tailor-made systems that, but they have no space for him because City had just kind of gotten Aguero and we're trying to build him up, and Chelsea had 977 people on loan, and they were like, oh, well, we got to sell some stuff to make ends meet, I guess. I've still never tried to do the fiscal gymnastics that is Chelsea Football Club. I will never possess that level of accounting acumen.
I think that's what they invented, AI.
But either way, he's a guy that you always wanted to root for, from him getting people to do his dumb dance. Like Alberto Moreno doing the dumb Sturridge dance is one of the just absolute highlights. Just the most awkward thing where he's like, does my arm do this? And you're like, man, but it was just so endearing. And to only get basically a season and a quarter of him at just full gear is just sad. And it's the fact that and I don't want to say that Thiago and Naby and Radnep are guys that never really tried to come back, but you could with Sturridge, you just would see so often he was never a guy that would spend like a month away and you wouldn't like see him on the bench and they'd be like talking about, well, he's doing really well in training, or he's doing these weird exercises to try to get back. He always seemed to be with the team in some capacity. And even if he was unable to play, he wanted to be there if he was going to be like a mentor for Sterling, a guy who kind of took a similar trajectory for him in terms of a kid that got really pushed into the spotlight really quick. And there was just so many things to root for with Daniel Sturridge when everything kind of came to pass where he was just not able to do it anymore. And his kind of end of career run has been really sad. But yeah, that's a guy that, the wick on that candle burnt way too quick.
You know, and one thing to really look back to kind of just go one more thing on Sturridge is if you can't go watch the interview that he had with Joe Gomez on the sideline. I mean, that just shows you how much genuine that the guy cares about the people that he was with. You know, called him his little brother, you know, and stuff like that. You know, because he took him under his wing. You know, those are guys that you feel for. You know, and that's why I could never, you know, always have a soft spot for Sturridge right there with that goofy dance right there.
So from one player who promised so much but didn't deliver quite what we wanted, to a season which right now is promising so much and they not deliver quite what we wanted. We had that bump in the road there last weekend against Arsenal, which has been talked to death, so we don't really need to go over it, but we get a chance to recover this weekend against Burnley at home, and 10 a.m. I believe it's for the Eastern Coast people like us, like me anyway, and Trevor. But Trevor, if you want a game to recover from a defeat, an unexpected defeat, in the manner that it was given to us, because we didn't play anywhere near as well as we could have, Burnley is probably the team you want to play, isn't it?
Yeah, coming off of a performance like that, you'd want to see one of those bottom teams. You probably Sheffield United or Burnley were the two that coming off of that performance. If it was anybody but that, I've seen a lot of people going like, well, you kind of need to rope Everton in that because they're so far down there. And Luton, I'm like, nah, Luton is a team right now that just has way too much fight in them for my liking. As I've said on many occasions on this podcast, I am a path of least resistance guy. I don't need to battle. I don't need to beat the final boss every time. I can take out the minions all day. I don't give a shit about full the sporting experience of having to beat the best and be the best through that path. Doesn't appeal to me at all. Nevertheless, the Burnley is a team I think is just ripe for the picking at this point because they are not necessarily resigned to going down, but they're a team that is so committed to their way of playing that if you go and score on them early, they will just fold and capitulate. And that is the best way to bounce back is to just absolutely thump a team. And I think Burnley gives us the best chance to do that.
Brian, is there a change of personnel, shape, or tactics needed for this game, or was that just a stinker that everybody's capable of having, and we just go on regardless, and then stick to the plan and give the players a chance to redeem themselves?
Now, there definitely has to be some change in personnel. I mean, I saw some serious issues there, namely the midfield, because I thought that we lost almost every single midfield battle in that match. But I'm not going to keep on going on about what happened there. But I did, think we did our Thursday night smash and bash that we've done for injured players. But there's some people out. There's a particularly one player right there who I really don't want in our midfield for this match. That's Gravenberg. I had lots of issues with Gravenberg in that match right there. I kind of said the same thing over the past couple of weeks. I just don't know what to do with him, and I'm hoping that Endo has some good fitness. I know he went back in and was training with the squad and all that. That we could go there and put him back and then as a holder, and then go there and put McAllister and Jones up there at the top of the midfield, and run with that. Put Gravenberg on the bench. Sure, he can be on the bench all he wants right there. And another player right there, I think that we gave Gapco a very good shake, and it didn't pan out. I mean, in that last match, I know we bashed Nunez and stuff like that, but in that little bit of period that Nunez came on the pitch, I saw more life out of him than I saw with Gapco and those other 60 minutes that he was on there. I mean, and I think that that's problems, and I think that that I think our lineup is a little bit more is stronger without those type of issues right there, and I think that we're going to bounce back. I think this is the perfect squad to come through, to hit them to hit and get at least come through, get 4 or 5 goals out of this match, because I think that we're easily capable of getting 4 or 5 goals out of a Burnley side that 1 can't score, 2 can't defend. So what better opportunity? Path of least resistance, as Trevor says. Beat them up.
There you go. If we learn to use technology, we'd be even better. But Trevor, what I want to do is, while we're talking, I want to put the Burnley's position up under stats for losses and draws and goals conceded and all that. Do we need to just win this game, or is this one where a statement really, really needs to be made?
I would love for it to be a statement game where you go and you kind of just let everybody in that pack at the top know what you're about. Kind of get that goal difference back jacked up the way it should be. But in speaking out of the other side of my mouth, I wouldn't be completely against just winning. It was something that we kind of took for granted a lot of times in past seasons, where it's like, oh, every bad team in those seasons where it's like, oh, the 90 something point seasons where lost it every loss, and it's I think it's kind of in the sense where we are right now. Every loss feels like the end of the world, where it really should just be something where you kind of have to take things in stride. And every bad team, it's not La Liga where you thump every team from 12 down 6-0. It's just not. It's not that way. But I think, given how bad Liverpool played against Arsenal, it has to be something in the next couple games. There has to be an example made of somebody, and Burnley, I think, is the easiest one to do it against. There has to be. You can't just go a bunch of strings of 1-0s at this point. There has to be a marker set down, and I would prefer it to be just an immediate get it out of your system. Just really just let all of your aggression out on Burnley and really just stamp your claim to the top of the league.
Brian, I want to look at that bottom of the table again. Just if you look at their goals conceded, the 47 goals conceded. I mean, that's a lot. And only 24 scored. So just barely above 1 per game on average. If we happen to banana skin this particular game, is that the league title challenge up for this season? If we cannot put Burnley away after that defeat against Arsenal, does that put into question the mentality or the physical conditioning of the players? Because maybe they're fatigued, or the inexperience of the team as a whole. And we can just say, it's a nice dream, but City have the whip hand at that point.
Yeah, I really do. I think that was if we can't put them to the sword, I think that we have serious problems with winning the league. I think that if you look at the next couple of matches that we have have ahead of us, we have Brentford coming up, we have Luton Town coming up, and then we turn out there and we have Forest, and then we start that march that we're all scared about. In my opinion, I think it was what's going to go in there and make or break us with City and Everton back to back. I mean, so those. But we have to go there. We need to go there and win every match that we have right now, leading up to the City match. I mean, to actually say that we are still in the run for this. And this even goes by here with Cities with their still game at hand that they still have to go there and play. So I mean, we still have to we need to go there and look at this as a must-win situation. I mean, we're running cup finals at the moment, and I mean that's all we can do.
Trevor, for this game, are we looking at Darwin Núñez to do what we keep asking him to do every week? Salah is a good few weeks away, I believe, still from at least making an effective return, as we talk about sick notes there tonight. But do we really need the players that we have cast into some doubt, mockingly, for a lot of the time? It is a podcast, and you do need to take extreme positions sometimes to get the conversation going. But do we really need him to pull his finger out at this point and start putting the simple ones away? Because every chance missed could be the chance that gets us the win we need to keep going to that last day of the season for the title.
More than anything with Darwin Núñez, and as we've garnered the reputation of being the Darwin Núñez hit squad. I just want to see, we all want to see him score goals, whether it be a sitter or a worldie. That's anything. I just don't want this to be something where we get to these games and we have to rely on him because there is no Mo, and there is guys they're either banged up or in poor form, and he is just the de facto goal scorer at this point. As Liverpool's number 9, you have to just be that guy, and sometimes you just have to take the game by the scruff of the neck and get a goal by any means necessary. And I just haven't seen, outside of the Newcastle game, where he just kind of imposes will coming off the bench. That was its own kind of just one singular event for him. Everything else has just been completely, if you're just plotting points on a chart, they are all over the place. I want Darwin Núñez to get his signature game as a starter, because now I referenced the Newcastle. That's the one where everybody goes, oh, yeah, he can do this. He's shown that he can. He can get in great positions. He can do his chaos and he can score goals and he can get us points. I want to see that from him for 75 minutes. I want to see just that prolonged impact. And goals would be nice as well. And in the end, I really think this is one of those perfect games. Other than Sheffield United, there's no more tailor-made, just run rampant team in this league than Burnley. And unlike Sheffield United, who kind of their leakiness comes from just not being the sturdiest at the back, Burnley's comes from a false sense of aggressiveness sometimes, where they think they can kind of go punch for punch with people, and then they're down 3-0 and they don't know what the fuck happened. I think that is something that you need to kind of get Darwin a goal in those circumstances. A team that is going to give you opportunities that you normally wouldn't have, and he just needs to put one of those away, and I think it would shut a lot of people, including us, up.
So before we start wrapping things up, Trevor, do you have a very quick score prediction for Saturday?
I'm gonna say 3-1. I can't put a clean sheet up there, but we'll say one of those three is Nunez, and it will probably be some sort of scorpion kick or something, and then he'll hit the bar from 1 foot away.
Brian, quick score prediction.
I'm gonna say 4-0. I think that they can't score, they can't defend, and I think that Nunez right there is gonna go there and have a brace out of this match.
I gotta go 4-0. Yeah, I think I could see that as well. But then it's Liverpool, and we're always capable of gifting a team a goal. Not often, but consistently. So before we go, the fantasy football show is on immediately after us, so or within 5 minutes or thereabouts. So if you're into the fantasy football league, the boys are there to give you the hints and the tips and the tricks. We want to make sure that everybody's part of our Discord channel and our social media, our Facebook, our YouTube, our X, formerly known as Twitter, and our Instagram. We have a Patreon coming up soon, so if it's something that everybody should be involved in. And then make sure, if you want to know how everything is going, I'm going to make sure that you are
like and subscribe. Smash that like button.
Or tap it gently if you're of the Thursday night persuasion. And speaking of Thursday nights, we love everybody's contributions on all of our shows, but I want to say a big shout out and thank you to Alan Walno, who's here religiously every week with us. We enjoy all the comments. And Trevor, are you afraid?
Sure. I don't know what I'm afraid of, but you know what? Just my general disposition, I'll be fearful of whatever you would like me to be afraid of. I'm a very pliable human being when it comes to my personal psyche.
So with that said, the Monday morning coffee, or the Monday morning coffee, the American Scouser coffee morning is on tomorrow morning, and then we will have a pre and post game on Saturday. So make sure you're paying attention for that. And we will love to see everybody again next week. Make sure you are liking and subscribing and getting the notifications. So that today's bad day after last video has been the best days ever.
You will see plenty of Thiago commentary from Anand tomorrow.
Those donuts are going to taste fantastic.
Oh, they're going to taste. Don't get the chocolate glazed.
Yeah, it is going to be a powdered funeral.
Make sure you have a good plumber's number. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying from experience. Make sure you know where your local roto-rooter is. So it just remains to say peace out to everybody. Enjoy the weekend and enjoy the fantasy football show, which is coming up with the lads next. And it's Thursday night, which means it's time for the 70s porn as we all grow our mustaches and wear our tight jean shorts.